June. The peak of Australia's convention scene. 3 cities, 3 weekends, a gauntlet of sales, sleep deprivation and suitcase shuffling. This is what I call the June Trifecta. Oz Comic Con Melbourne, Sydney Supernova and Perth Supernova. It's the only time of year international guests set foot on our shores and where artists like myself race to meet the moment. In this video, I'll take you through each stop, the earnings, the mistakes, and the lessons I packed along the way. This is my review of the June Trifecta. Before we dive in though, let's talk about the scene itself. Australia's convention circuit is competitive, in an Australian way. Breaking in is no easy task, and often you'll find yourself tabled next to someone selling nearly identical merch. That's why standing out is everything. For me, I lean into my niche, which is steampunk with a mix of sci-fi and paleo-inspired illustration. It isn't just about style, it's survival. Whether it's Oz Comic Con or Supernova, the big shows pull in all walks of life. So if you're not bringing something unique to the table, you risk fading into the noise. But when you do carve your lane, you start building a returning audience. And that's what turns a booth into a business. Now let's start off with the first leg of this trifecta. Oz Comic Con Melbourne. Kicking things off, Oz Comic Con Melbourne from June 7th to 8th, right here in my home state. This is an A-grade show. High tier guests, massive foot traffic, and tax return season. If you're ready, it's gold. Booth pricing, $580, and they run a very weird table policy with payment of tables. Even if you're accepted, your spot isn't secure until paid or they sell out. Plenty of artists lost out from waiting, which kind of threw a lot of people off, and it also told us that they over-accept people compared to the amount of tables, which really throws people off. And as usual, I will bring up what most people want, the money. So, on screen, I will show you what my overheads and earnings were. Let's start with the Saturday, which I earned $1,600. And then Sunday, I earned $1,470, which totaled my gross to $3,070 Australian dollars. A strong and steady weekend with a great return. But here's the overheads. Booth, $580. Transport, which was free for me Saturday, as I went with a friend in exchange for giving him a ticket to the event. But then on the Sunday, I had to pay out for the whole day, total of $162.29. Food was prepped at home, so my total overheads was $742.29, netting my total profit at $2,327.71. Now let's have a look at how others panned out. So from the survey I sent out, 63.6% were from Melbourne, given it's a Melbourne show, 18.2% in New South Wales, and the remainder was from South Australia and New Zealand. Their earnings was from 72.7% that made $3,000 to $4,000, and 18.2% hit $2,000 to $3,000. People praise its accessibility rating, with 81.8% rating it between a 7 to a 10 out of 10. Most artists scored their placement a 6 to an 8, and the organiser feedback was mostly positive, with some frustration over late floor plans and confusing artist entry procedures. Though the success factors, a strong crowd, Central venue being the Melbourne Convention Exhibition Centre, as I stated in my last video, and a nice curated alley, with everything being unique. Though the critiques that were given were that artist alleys felt pushed to the back, late updates, and unclear layout signage, and there is a need for better seating and food options. But also, the one that's on everyone else's mind is the concern about creeping table costs. As stated from one survey answer, the location and amount of artists was very good. Having the guests behind Artist Alley pushed people to come through. And in the survey, another person responded with, the curated alley, the strong crowd and accessible venue is what made it really good. And now, on to the next leg, which became my most logistical nightmarish event ever. Sydney Supernova. Sydney Supernova with a spice of chaos. I booked a Jetstar flight. Thought I'd save money. Big mistake. New rule, 40 kilogram baggage cap. No flexibility. I had 4 suitcases. No refunds, no courier, so I went to New South Wales Trainlink. 11 hours from Melbourne to Sydney, though I barely got through. And for the trip home, I had to pay for a new Qantas flight to avoid the possible headache of being rejected at the train. And despite all of that, Sydney was still my best Sydney event to date. For Saturday, I earned $1,823.50, while Sunday was also very strong with a total of $1,635.50, totaling my gross at $3,459 Australian dollars. But here's the breakdown of all the chaos. The booth was $360, my Jetstar loss $265, my train loss, which was only half really because I did go one way but I didn't go back the other, the Qantas plus baggage $295, my food was $167.30 because I love the Lebanese pizza they now have in Sydney. The rideshare total for the whole entire trip was $377.01, totaling my overheads to $1,644.31, making my profit $1,814.69. Now, let's look at Sydney's feedback. The location from most people was 37.5% were from Vic, 25% from New South Wales, 12.5% from Queensland, along with South Australia and New Zealand. Earnings, 25% made between $3,000 to $4,000, while 25% made between $2,000 and $3,000, which was a bit mixed given that Melbourne Oz Comic Con was such a banger for most people, but the accessibility rate was still good with 62.5% rating it a 7 out of 10. Placement ratings, others landed between 5 and 8. Though the top performing factors, I was next to the stage for Critical Role, and given that Critical Role, along with other major guests were there, really played a part in Sydney's event, turning out the way it did. And the Artist Alley is not like the Melbourne Showgrounds that I have roasted before. It's actually right next to each other. It's basically a hop, skip and a jump between the Exhibitors Hall and the Artist Alley Hall, making it really easy for people to find us, unlike Melbourne. And as well, with the Showgrounds, to give context, their Showgrounds is on the way for most people when going to the city, as it's in Olympic Park and the transport system's really decent and the station is very near. So that also plays a major part. Although this was a very decent convention for most people, people had raised concerns in the feedback. Many patrons were rushing through the Artist Alley. Sales were slower due to Smash just being weeks away. Now, Smash, as some of you might know, but some of you might not know, Smash is a massive 3-day event that is held in Sydney where it's all dedicated to anime, and a lot of people actually save up for that. Bootleg merch in Exhibitor Hall hurt convention quality, and the floor plan and announcements could have been a bit timelier. Pretty standard stuff, if you ask me. Though, by quote, people were friendly and encouraging, but they were clearly saving money for Smash. Supernova is fine, but compared to Oz Comic Con and Smash, it feels less polished. End quote. These are the things that people have noticed, and I reckon Sydney needs to do something to make it their own one-of-a-kind convention. I think if we started doing that for Sydney, things like Smash will also be something that people can look forward to, but people will also look forward to Sydney more than Smash, and not just something just to entertain themselves for a weekend. Perth. The final stretch. No flights missed, no train nightmares, and for me, still one of my best shows in the country. I've built a fan base here. Customers return year after year, while this year didn't top last year's all-time record of $4,800. It came close. My sales on Saturday was $2,577. While Sunday dipped, it was still strong with $1,385, totaling my gross to $3,962 Australian. The overheads is what kinda really hits the wallet hard, but is still worth it at the end of the day, with my flights being $820.84, my accommodation split with my partner being $268.95, food was really cheap at $128 for the both of us, and rideshare throughout the whole weekend was $100.70. Now the reason the rideshare was really cheap was when we booked for our accommodation conveniently was a 5-minute walk to the venue. Though this last bit of overheads I'm going to read out to you and tell you how much it was, I need to give context. Qantas normally doesn't weigh carry-ons. It is actually stated by sales representatives that they don't check carry-ons because you pay for a premium flight that has got really premium quality to it. Why would they nickel and dime you for little problems such as that? And for me, I kind of bend the rules sometimes along with my partner to get to places to avoid those baggage fees. However, this time was different. At Perth Airport, a rogue staff member forced us to check our bags. After she had a look at the weight of our carry-ons, she forced us to pay for a whole new bag at the airport, which cost me $130 to check in. And then after we paid, we go past and they stop checking everyone else and put the scales away. So that made me a very, very steamy boy. So cheers for that, Qantas. So my total overheads was $1,448.49 with a net profit of $2,513.51 Australian. Now for the survey I gave for Perth. In my survey, with no surprise, 66.7% were from Western Australia and 33.3% were from Vic, and I didn't get much from the other states, but I know there was other people from those states who attended. The earnings were an even split between all the artists, being some in one group earning 100 to 1,000, another group being 1,000 to 2,000, and respectively another group between the $3,000 to $4,000 mark. Accessibility, 66.7% rated it a perfect 10. Placement, scores leaned toward a 7 out of 10. The positives, a loyal fan base, which, as I stated before, I have my own fan base there, which come year after year and even stalk my Instagram until the event comes around to see if I'm coming. Smaller alley, which equals more visibility, and strong venue and energy. Though the critiques were poor support for last minute acceptances, limited interactivity beyond shopping, table layout and traffic flow was really uneven, and I kind of noticed that too, and I think that was definitely a factor to why I earned a bit less this year in Perth given to last year, because this year we were kind of sent to the back, and that was like the exit point was there too, and for along with other artists actually, mind I add, that we should be towards the entrance area, because given that we're at the entrance area, people had more time to spend money on us before spending on the bigger items in the bigger businesses. The need for stronger guests and better food variety. Now, I will say now that Western Australia gets forgotten a lot, and I think the company itself that runs Supernova gets complacent because they know that it's a very strong competition between all the other cons and they have the monopoly. They kind of get lazy a little bit when it comes to guests. Whereas Sydney had like Critical Role. Critical Role could have stayed an extra week to do Perth as well, but that just kind of didn't happen. Supernova dominates Perth because it has no real competition, but that doesn't mean it should get complacent. End quote. Keep it small, focused and guest driven, and it'll keep thriving. End quote. My final thoughts. 3 cities, 3 weekends, 3 unique beasts. Melbourne delivered consistency. Sydney gave me record numbers despite chaos, and Perth proved it's still a powerhouse with room still to grow if the convention doesn't go complacent. For artists navigating Australia's convention scene, my biggest advice is finding your niche, standing out, and always pack for the chaos. Thanks for tuning in. Hit like, subscribe, and let me know your biggest convention win or horror story in the comments below. More convention coverage coming soon. Thanks for tuning in.